Hello, I am David Legac from University of Rouen Normandy. In this PowerPoint, I'm going to present a study that Sabrina, Bendjaballah and I conducted on preboundary lengthening in Somali. Well, as you know, spoken utterances in languages are parsed into prosodic units that form a prosodic structure. These prosodic units are characterized by various phonetic and phonological cues cross-linguistically, such as phonological processes like Sandy phenomena, distribution of stress, pitch-related phenomena, for example, Bendjaballah tones, the insertion of pauses, the initial strengthening, that is the spatial temporal expansion of initial segments, and finally the preboundary lengthening, which we will also call PBL in this presentation. So PBL is the phenomenon whereby the segments located immediately before certain boundaries are longer than the segments located earlier in the utterance. Now, Somali prosody. So Somali is a tonal accent language. The tonal accent consists of a high tone associated with a vocalic mora, and there is at most one tonal accent per prosodic word. Little is known about the phonetic and phonological properties of higher level prosodic constituents in Somali. We know that there are sound rules and maybe a process of downstep within the phonological phrase. Boundary tones appear at higher prosodic levels, but they are not consistent across utterances and speakers. Pauses seem to be frequently inserted after topic phrases and with it NPs. In a recent work, Sabrina, Bendjaballah and I have shown that initial strengthening of voice stops occurs in Somali, but it does not cumulatively increase with each level in the prosodic hierarchy like standard initial strengthening. And to date, we still don't know anything about segment duration in domain final position. The aim of the present study is to determine whether PBL occurs in Somali, and if so, whether it is a consistent cue of prosodic boundary. To do this, vowel duration was measured at the end of nouns inserted in 3 different syntactic contexts and before pause. Final vowel duration was compared with word internal vowel duration. In this presentation, we will first present the methodology and the results, and then discuss the implication of the results on Somali prosodic structure in the light of current relevant theories. Our speech material consists in declarative sentences which have the following structure: X, N1, N2, Waha, VP, and Y. N1 is the noun containing the target vowel, either in word final position, that is at the end of N1, or in word internal position. X and Y are noun or adverb phrases. VP is the verb phrase. Waha is the focus particle that focalizes Y. This means that X, N1, and N2 are topics. In order to study vowel duration in word final context, N1 was followed by another noun, N2, and inserted in the 3 following syntactic contexts, which represent 3 degrees of syntactic dependence or independence between N1 and N2. In the first context, N1 is the subject and N2 the object of the verb. There are 2 independent NPs, and we will call this context IND. In the second context, N1 and N2 form NP together. They are in genitive construction, and this context will be called gene. In the third context, comp, N1 and N2 form a nominal compound together. To ensure a valid interpretation of final vowel duration in the 3 syntactic contexts, we measure the duration of word internal vowels both before singleton consonants and before lexical geminates b, d, g. In all sentences, the target vowel was the vowel I. It was unaccented and was the nucleus of the 5th syllable starting from the beginning of the sentence. In IND, GEN, and COMP, N2 begins with a CA sequence, in which C was one of the 3 stops B, D, and G. In word internal position, I was followed by a C or CCA seconds. The corpus we drafted was subsequently amended by 3 consultants, 2 native speakers of Somali and 1 linguist expert in Somali. As a result, the corpus used in the experiment consists of 83 sentences. 4 native speakers of Standard Somali were recorded. The speakers were recorded in the recording studio of SOAS, London, in March 2019. The speakers repeated each sentence at least 3 times. So 1,244 sentences were recorded, 843 sentences were analyzed, while 401 sentences were discarded for reasons explained in the paper. The speakers often realize pauses after N1 in gen and int, but not in comp. We thus include 2 additional modalities for the analysis of PBL, gen P and int P. For the measurements, vowel duration was defined as the interval between the onset and offset of the I's F2. Pause duration was measured between the end of I and the beginning of the voicing of the following be, de, ge. Let's move on to results. The figure here reports the mean duration of the vowel I in the 7 conditions. A one-factor ANOVA with context as fixed factor shows a significant context effect. Post-hoc pairwise comparisons reveal that there is no significant difference in vowel duration in both word internal contexts. Vowel duration at the end of N1 in comp is similar to that found in word internal positions, but it is longer at the end of a phrase and it increases linearly depending on the importance of a syntactic boundary and the presence of a pause. However, there is no significant difference in vowel duration between int P and gen P. In sum, we arrive at 4 levels of vowel duration, which exhibit preboundary lengthening patterning as follows. As said earlier, pauses were produced after N1 in gen and int only. More precisely, 18% of N1 were followed by a pause in gen and 62% in int. As for pause duration, results for gen and int are given in this box plot. Pause duration in int is slightly longer than pause duration in gen. However, an independent sample t-test shows no significant difference between gen and int. In other words, the syntactic boundary only has a slight but no significant effect on pause duration. In this last section, we discuss the implication of the experimental results on Somali prosodic structure. 2 issues are at stake. 1. How many prosodic constituents are needed to account for the results? And 2. How do these constituents relate to the syntactic structures involved in the experiment? Let's begin with nominal compounds. Results have shown that vowel duration at the end of N1 in compound is similar to vowel duration in word internal context. This suggests that there is no prosodic boundary between N1 and N2 in compound. In addition, compounds have one tonal accent only like simple nouns. These 2 observations suggest that compounds form a single prosodic word on a par with simple nouns. However, Sabrina, Bendjaballah and I showed that N2 in compound is characterized by the strengthening of its initial stop, whereas word internal stops are spirantized. This suggests, therefore, the presence of a prosodic word boundary before N2 in compounds. In fact, we showed that the acoustic properties of the initial stop of N2, among others the closure duration, the presence of a released burst and its duration, are similar to the acoustic properties of lexical geminates. In order to account for all these facts, we will adopt a proposal that has been made for various Afroasiatic languages in the CV phonology framework. we will assume that all major categories, nouns, verbs, are preceded by an empty CV unit in Somali. Thus, N1 and N2 compounds have the representation given on the top, with the initial empty CV represented in bold and underlined. As can be seen, the phonological representation of the resulting stop is identical with that of a word internal lexical geminate, given here at the bottom. This analysis thus accounts for the fact that noun initial stops are realized like lexical geminates in Somali. Both are associated with two skeletal C slots. In addition, we can maintain a prosodic analysis according to which a compound consists of one prosodic word only. As far as higher prosodic constituents are concerned, results have shown that BBL occurs in gen and int. Moreover, a tonal accent may appear on each noun in this context. So, we propose the following prosodic structures for this context, namely, N1 in gen forms its own prosodic word. In int, N1 is inserted into a phonological phrase. When there is a pause, the fact that vowel duration and pause duration are not significantly different in gen and int indicates that pause is independent from syntax and is not an additional and optional cue for prosodic word and phonological phrase. We thus propose that pause, together with long vowel duration, is the phonetic exponent of a higher prosodic constituent, either the intonation phrase or the intermediate phrase. This proposal is consistent with what has been found in the literature on pause. More specifically, it is generally accepted that pauses can occur between intonational phrases and not elsewhere in read speech. It is also in line with what I had previously observed on pause insertion in Somali, namely that topicalized noun phrases are often followed by pause. To conclude, we have shown that preboundary lengthening does exist in Somali. It constitutes a robust phonetic correlate at prosodic boundaries. In this respect, it contrasts with the instability of boundary tones reported in previous studies. We distinguish 4 levels of vowel duration which are closely related to the syntactic structure and the occurrence of a pause. We propose to assume 3 different prosodic levels, where the highest level is manifested by preboundary lengthening and pause. In compounds, in order to account both for the absence of preboundary lengthening and the strengthening of the initial consonant of N2, we adopted the proposal of an empty skeletal position at the beginning of major categories on which the initial consonant propagates. Thank you for watching this presentation.